Thank you all so much for coming here today. I know it was very short notice for all of you. It was partly the fault of the mausoleum, the headstone people, because the stone wasn't in place. Partly I wanted to get this in before the weather turned bad. We really lucked out.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah,
cold
we did.
yesterday that I thought that the winter was almost upon us. So
It's going to rain tomorrow.
I'm really, really,
Yeah.
In between the rain.
happy that we were blessed with a good day for us. So I know it's been several years since my wonderful husband of 50 years passed away, but the headstone hadn't been in place until like 2 weeks ago, believe it or not, and so that's why that's why we're doing it now. Now, for those of you who've never attended an unveiling, and I know some of you haven't, or perhaps never even heard of one, let me explain a little bit about the tradition. In Jewish tradition, an unveiling is held at the end of the mourning period, not only to mark the positioning of the stone, but to kind of signify closure, so signify that the departed is finally at rest. It also allows, the ceremony also allows people the opportunity to remember and to talk about the loved one with pleasure instead of with the pain that people felt, when Joel passed away. There's not so much a religious observance as it's a memorial, tribute to the wonderful person who is no longer in our midst. In light of that, we're missing one. In light of that, after I say a short prayer, and you've all joined me in saying the 23rd Psalm, which is on your papers, and then we will. Scott's lovely new bride will say Kaddish, and we will join her in saying Kaddish, which is also on your papers for those of you who want to attempt it. And that Kaddish is the Jewish prayer for the dead. After that, I'll remove the stone. I will remove the covering from the stone, and anyone who'd like to remind us of Joel and his humor is invited to regale us with stories, and either here or at the restaurant. And then before departing the ceremony, the cemetery here, everyone is invited to take a stone from the basket that my sister-in-law Teresa has and place it on Joel's headstone. This signifies not only your presence here today, but it's a permanent reminder that all of you stays here with Joel. So, that said, let us begin. We start with the Jewish prayer, which is said in the cemetery at the dedication of a headstone. And then follow. All kind and merciful Father, 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday, and the years of our life are but as a span. Yet dost thou grant us the blessed comfort of prolonging on earth the loving memory of our dear ones. In thine unsearchable wisdom, thou hast taken our dear Joel from us. But the deep and tender love which attached us unto Joel is strong as death. Striving to soothe the sorrow of our hearts, we dedicate this stone today. In consecrating it unto the memory of the departed, may we at the same time dedicate unto the living the love with which our dear ones filled our lives. So may we realize the truth of sacred writ. The memory of the righteous is a blessing. Let us go hence with a deeper and broader love of life and humanity. We shall pay our debt. In this spirit, O God, we offer our prayers to Thee, Fill our hearts with humility, that we may truly know that thy thoughts are not our thoughts. Help us so to live that the purity and goodness of our lives may bring honor to the memory of the dear ones who dwell in peace with thee. Thus shall we erect for them their truest, their lasting memorial among men. May the soul of our departed be bound up in life everlasting. Praise be thou, O God, who givest life and takest away. Amen.
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 That's what I do with that one.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, that's nicer.
The Lord is my
My
shepherd.
shepherd, I shall not want.
He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters.
He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me, in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me the days of my life. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Sorry about this. This one. We're now going to say Kaddish, and Anna will lead us in this. This prayer is not only for Joel, but for Elaine's brother, who just passed away, and Louise's son, and Scott's brother, Barry, who passed away. Also for several people who didn't come here, Danny Paget's sister passed away, for those who know Danny, and my next door neighbor, not only his wife, but his sister passed away, and within a week of each other. So this is just kind of for all of them.
Can we say this together?
You can say
Yes.
it together.
If you
Okay.
can.
Or you can just say amen. If you
Okay.
G'dah, v'yis g'dah, shemei rabba.
Amen.
All base Israel, Ba'agavon Zman Korim V'Yinro Omein. Hey Shalom Rabba B'Barach L'Noam L'Nai Yisbarach Yisbarach Yisbarach
Yisraman, Yisnasei, Yisadar, Yisalel, Yisalal,
Shmei Kashashar Baruchu Like the Mom Bimkol
Shirasa,
Shishbachasa V'Nechamasa Da'amivan V'Ola V'Imru Omein Shmama B'Vam V'Shemayel Hey, with the Kol Yisrael, Yinru, Omein. Oseh Shalom Ramah, Uya Aseh Shalom, Oleinu V'Kol Yisrael, Yinru, Omein.
Okay, now, let me preface this unveiling with just a few more words. Now, you all know that when Joel and I were married 50 years ago, my husband, my beloved husband, had frequently joked that when he passed away, what he wanted on his tombstone was his theatrical his headshot on the front and his resume on the back. And although that was not quite feasible, I have tried to honor the spirit, if not the letter of his wishes. So now what you're about to see owes very much credit to Joel's very good friend here, Richard Ginsburg, who helped me put together the elements that I wanted on this stone. Please do not be shocked by the fact that I am also on the tombstone. There were multiple reasons for this. After all, it is a joint stone, and I have no kids to arrange one for me after I'm gone. By adding us both at the same time, it not only created a unity of appearance, which might not have happened if I were added later. But lastly, I wanted our final remembrance to be of a time when we were happy together, and yes, a little bit younger than we are now, because nobody wants to be remembered as a wrinkly old person. So I'd like to say that this was both of us in our prime or close to it, and so without further ado, here's the fruit of several years of effort and a lot of love.
Need help, Cal? Oh, wow.
Oh my
Wow.
God, how fabulous. Oh my God. Look at that. Wow. That's sensational. Look at that. It's a proscenium.
That's exactly what it is. It's a theater proscenium. I like the cat there.
Yeah,
Carol,
I like
the cat.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to
meet that.
Yeah.
Carol, can we say anything about Joel?
Yes, please. Well,
Mel and I met Carol and Joel through Bob and Clancy Annenkow, and we never stopped laughing. He was witty and sharp and smart, and sometimes he and Bob could go on back and forth, and it was always a delight to be in his and Carol's company. We love him, we miss him, we love you, hon.
Add a footnote to that. Whenever Elaine said, "Oh, we got a call from Bob and Francie, we're going to dinner there." Now I knew Joel and Carol would always be there, and sometimes you go out with people and you come home and you say, "Boy, I never was able to get a word in edgewise." But in this case, I didn't want to get a word in edgewise because I knew I was going to be entertained. It was like, why go to pay $60 a ticket or more at Broadway when I can go to Bob's house, buy a bottle of wine, and be entertained by Bob and Joel?
Give me those $60 tickets for Broadway.
We buy TDF, so that's
Same
it.
here.
And so he is a great image of Joel, and that's why I said to his delightful friend here, you look just like him.
Yes. Yeah.
And, it's like a resurrection of the body, not the soul. I remember when Joel, after Joel had his surgery, and he lost some weight, he didn't lose an ounce of his spirit and his humor and his ability. So he continues on.
Absolutely.
Through you, Carol.
Yeah.
Because we both got fellowships for Wayne State, but I also decided to move to the drama school to study directing. So for about a year or so, or two, I guess, we were only in communication through mail. But then later on, we got back together, and Joel spent a great deal of time also teaching at the school that I was a teacher at. So it's a real loss for us that he's gone. But I was trying to think of something I could tell that kind of illustrated Joel's sense of humor and wit. And a story occurred to me that kind of illustrates two things: his humor, but also the talent of an actor. As you know, actors invest dialogue with line readings that give them different meanings than they might otherwise literally have. Joel was in a production of Fiddler on the Roof playing Laser Wolf, which starred Topo, an actor with a reputation, to say the least, of being one of the nastier people in the business, and it's not a great thing to work with him, but a very good, good actor, right? Well, when he was coming out of the stage door one time, he told this story. Naturally, he also had his beard on, and Topo had his beard, and there was a slight resemblance. So the people waiting for autographs, because Topo had a movie career as well, ran up to Joe and said, "Oh, Topo." I says, "No, I'm afraid I'm not Topo playing Laser Wolf." "Oh, yes, but that Topo, it must be so wonderful to work with such a dear man as that, who has such warmth." And because they were, like most audiences, they identified him with the character, right? And Joel nodded comfortably, and he just turned to them and he simply said, "Yes, he's a very good actor."
We were 2 years apart in age, and we lived about a block away from each other when we both grew up. And I'm an only child, so he was really like a brother to me my whole life. We shared a lot of things, personal. We shared our fears and things that we loved, and the movies, and certainly the theater. And I loved him very much, and I have a grandson who's 14 who didn't know him very long, but also loved him tremendously, was very impressed by him. The one story I can tell is that when I was in college, I had to do a paper on the creative process. And I'm not that creative. I don't paint, I don't write, I don't perform. So I said to the teacher, "Can I do a paper on someone who is creative?" And he said, "Yes, but that's very hard to do because you have to ask the right questions to get the kind of paper you're going to need." Now, I had a father who was a writer. I had my Aunt Clara, who was a painter and a writer and a teacher. But I chose Joel, much to they mentioned to me, not me, but I chose Joel because aside from all of his creative ability, I knew that he would talk to me and give me the answers to my questions. And we taped about 6 hours, and the paper did very well, but I learned an awful lot about him. He shared a lot with me, and for me, his passing was a tremendous loss, and I loved him very much.
Do you still have a copy of that paper?
I do.
Oh, no, that's the tape one.
Oh, well, no, I took one.
No.
I have them all.
Stories and share with Fred has a good sense of humor and some storytelling ability, not quite Joel's, but we would have great fun together over the years.
When I was about 7 years old, I went to see a show, a Broadway play, and my parents said, "Your cousin's going to be in it, your cousin Joel." And I was very excited. The play was starred, the character was an elephant.
An elephant.
The play lasted a while. To me, it probably lasted a long time as a 7-year-old. The curtain came up at the end. I looked at my mother and said, "Where's Joel?" But other than that, Joel was the funniest person I ever knew, one of the kindest. even though we told the same joke every Passover.
He did start to do that. The older he got, the more frequent the same joke would come around again.
And I know
Funny
he
every time.
Yes.
adored Carol. And I'll never forget one time we were on a city bus and some delinquent was bothering you and he stood up to this guy. I couldn't believe it because I always saw him as a kind person, and he was a good cousin.
I worked with Joel at Nassau Community College. It's really my first introduction to Joel, so I've come later to the parade of his admirers, and very much so. Joel taught me a number of lessons, and we all know he was funny, and we all know he was an amazing human being and a huge heart. But I worked on a production of Dracula. Passion of Dracula, to be precise, and I was set designer on this particular occasion, and we started to discuss, Dracula's entrance, Dracula's door. And I've always built doors the size of doors. It has to be bigger. It has to be bigger for its entrance. It has to mean more. It's a dramatic moment. Went back to the design table, we did a bigger door, and Joel goes, aha, size matters. We also learned from that production is never to cast someone who does a death scene really well, because that's really all they can do. That was, yes, you know.
I know.
One of the other great moments for my
That was
family.
one of the dirtier tricks I played on Joel. I had to have surgery and was originally going to direct that production, and poor Joel was stuck with it.
Oh, is that? Oh, I see. One of the crowning moments in his directing at Nassau, and a family member was my son was drafted into his production of Hairspray. They needed one more white boy. We had an odd number of casts, and my son Max was in high school, but he liked dancing and he came in. He had quite an education, and I'm glad that he got to work with Joel as a director, because he saw what directing was about. Now he's a performer. Thanks, Joel. Thank you very much. I didn't have the honor of the Passover stories, but I can honestly say I don't think I heard the same joke ever twice with Joel. It was always interesting. We'd walk by the office, and he'd be in the office, and there'd be some witticism, some story, some note. The two that stand out in my mind are, there was a lot of talk about the Jewish conspiracy, and this is years ago, and it's back. It's interesting, you know. And they said, they're talking about the Jewish conspiracy, the meeting. We're meeting. I went, I don't know anything about it. He goes, you missed the meeting? I was there Thursday, saved you a seat. And one of the moments coffee is something we do. Bob and I had a whole, libation of drinking coffee every morning, and I had a ceramic mug, and I had finished my mug up, sitting in the hallway, and I'm just standing and holding the mug, and Joel walks by, and he drops a quarter in my mug. He said, "Here's one kopeck." 1 kopeck. Last week you gave me 2 kopecks. I had about, and we did the whole thing for Fiddle on the Roof. And it was just brilliant. I was just sitting here holding the mug, and the quarter comes out, dunk, and just walks on by. It was, you know what? It was very hard to leave a conversation with Joel. He made me late to class more than anybody else. I loved talking to him. He always had a positive moment. He made your day better. He made you want to be better. And I miss him terribly at this point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unable to come tomorrow, I'm sure the ceremony will be very sweet, and I look forward to seeing the picture of the stone. Here are 2 little stories of the sort you requested. Please use whichever one you prefer. I think my memory of the details of the LBW story may have deteriorated. Do you recall it this way? Joel and I were great friends for nigh on to 60 years. Our friendship was based on mutual interests, musical theater for one, and on an immediate sense of personal connection. The first of our many collaborations took place at our high school, the Bronx High School of Science, in 1958 or 59, when I, at the piano, accompanied Joel in a performance for a school assembly. He sang two numbers, the big romantic baritone solo they called The Wind Mariah from Paint Your Wagon, which he did marvelously in a booming baritone and which became his signature audition piece, and the Tom Lehrer Hatter song, Love Bachevsky, which I had transcribed for the occasion from Lehrer's first record. Joel dressed up in a white lab coat, brushed his hair with talcum powder so as to impersonate a disciple of the great Russian mathematician in exaggerated Russian accent, the greatest who ever got chalk on his coat. Joel was hilarious and brought down the house. In my mind's ear, he's singing still. While working as musical director with Joel and Carol in the mid-60s on an off-Broadway production of a musical version of Treasure Island, the letters LBW came to undue prominence when, for some reason, Joel and I had a conversation in which we were trying to convey the joys of Jewish cuisine and found ourselves unable to recall the name of the smoked fish delicacy of which we were particularly fond. We kept saying, you know, little baby whitefish? We were trying to think of chubs. Until the phrase morphed into a moment of hilarity that was memorialized when one of the pirates appeared on stage during a performance with the letters LBW inside a heart prominently fox tattooed on his arm, breaking us all up. That silly acronym got a laugh out of us for years afterwards. May everything be beautiful, except tomorrow.
Who is that, Carol?
This is Dan
Dan.
Padgett.
Dan Padgett.
And he almost got here today, and then his significant other managed to fall down and break her leg, and she's in a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
And no, you know,
Sorry about that.
everyone has had major problems.
Yeah.
A friend, we all went to Queens College undergraduate together. I just came across something very classy of Joel. If it's lengthy, make emendations. Well, it's not that lengthy. At a luncheon about 6, 7, or 8 years ago, a conversation came up who portrayed Polonius in Olivier's 1948 Hamlet. Joel, who 99.99% of the time is always right, came up with the name of Finley Curie. I suggested with a modicum of self-doubt that the role of Polonius was portrayed by Felix Ahlmeyer. Well, after a brief back and forth, we wagered a handsome sum of 5 cents on the controversy. At the next luncheon, as we all sat down, Joel handed me a wrapped package. When I opened it up, there was a beautifully framed photo of the character Polonius played by Felix Ahlmeyer with 5 shiny 1-cent coins neatly arranged at the bottom of the frame. This was the usual classy manner in which Joel credited me with the correct answer that indeed it was Felix Ahlmeyer. I have and still value the photo and the manner with which Joel acknowledged that I was correct. I never challenged him again, since one victory was enough for me, and any further challenge of his knowledge would completely negate my one victory. Somehow when Dorothy, that's Arthur's wife, and I speak of Joel, it is always with the present. It is never Joel was, it's always Joel is. Love you, Joe, and lovely bride.
Thank you.